All right. So some folks have asked me if I've done a guide for the AIMOS like I did with the Shoot One, and I haven't done a written one yet. But I thought it might be nice to have a video to share with people before I actually put that together. This won't be like comprehensive. What I'm going to show is the hardware macros I've set up, specifically with a mouse in this case, but I've got a lot of these mirrored over on my keypad. But these are the AIMOS commands I use most often, and sort of in a more optimized way than I originally started doing them. When I first set up my mouse and my keypad to support the AIMOS commands like turning sync on, mouse positioning, switching to a particular slot, I would always have those bound as like one button per AIMOS command. And what I found was that pretty frequently I was constantly having to press the same set of hotkeys to do a certain thing, or buttons, whatever. And over time, I realized that, especially like if something, I'm in combat or whatever, and I'm having to press like 2 or 3 buttons even to get like sync on, and then a certain mouse positioning mode, or, I want to turn sync on to maybe harvest, and then I want to switch back to slot 1. But because I'm going to move the camera, I need to be back into relative positioning mode. So that's like, absolute sync on, sync on, absolute mouse positioning mode. Everybody goes and does their thing. They, mine or whatever. And then relative positioning mode on, switch to slot 1 or whatever, right? And pressing those keys, or all of those buttons in that order, especially on a MMO mouse where they're on the thumb, on the, the side, and my thumb isn't huge. What do you think? Is it huge? Sometimes I just hit the wrong buttons, right? And so gradually I started to think like, oh man, I should combine these. And so I recently got this new mouse, which has a lot of cool features, which I'm not going to talk about, but I'm going to go through these macros on here. And this applies to keyboard or keypad or, whatever. This is really just going to be just about using the AIMOS. With basically hardware macros that send one or more commands, right? So obviously the mouse is this big picture here, but also the macros are laid out very clean compared to like on my Red Dragon keypad, where the interface is a little more I don't know, gamery and kind of little harder to follow. So I'm just going to start and just sort of talk about each one of the buttons that I've sort of set up to do something with the AIMOS. And for the most part, that's going to be this one here. That's what we're looking at right now. This is it's purple in the preview here. This is called front edge press. This is rear edge press. And then this is left finger trigger, right finger trigger. And these two are just sort of normal buttons. These two are both buttons and triggers, so you can push and pull them, and they essentially act as a different actuation of an input. And then most of the other buttons on here are dedicated to other things that have more to do with, actually playing the game. Although some of them do include some AIMOS stuff, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. I'm going to try to make this as short as I can, just to demonstrate AIMOS functionality. So here we go. First one here, this is 2 things actually. So most of the time when you are going to see a command for an AIMOS, it's probably going to come in a group of 3, right? And so the AIMOS, as many of you probably already know, numpad star is sort of like the magic button. To some extent, it was scroll lock on the Shoe One. AIMOS is a little different than the Shoe One in so much as that when you're pressing the magic button, you are holding down numpad star, and in most cases you're keeping it held down, and then you're tapping a key and releasing numpad star. I think the one exception would be sync on. I had a different device I was working with where it couldn't do this without a macro that was stored on board. The idea of like holding a key down and letting it go, and it was a little complicated to use that. But while I was setting up a different way to go about something like that, I did find that sort of, you know, like just hitting star and 0 like in quick succession, that may work for you to turn on sync. But most of the AIMOS commands are going to involve holding down numstar, hitting something else, and letting numstar go. And so you see that here. This is my eventual evolution of my sync on, in that it actually combines the command to turn absolute mouse positioning on and then turning sync on. So anytime I have sync on, chances are I'm going to want to be, like for the mouse, this is mouse specific. This would not necessarily be set up like this for a keypad. And I'll try to make distinctions between what is a mouse specific set of commands and what is sort of either both or just a keypad. So in the case of turning absolute sync on with a mouse, you want to be in, turning sync on with a mouse, you want to have absolute mouse positioning on because you want your cursors synced up, right? Because you're syncing and using a mouse, right? And so that's what these three are. 1 through 3 is turning on absolute mouse positioning. So that's numpad star down, tap F9, let go of numpad star. And so these bottom 3, star, 0, star, this is turning sync on. So you see here, I combine these. Absolute mouse positioning, sync is on. For a keypad or keyboard, turning sync on, it's a keyboard. You probably want to leave mouse positioning however it is. And so you would only do these last 3 for a keyboard. Okay, so I'm going to pop back out here, and you know, there's a lot going on here. I'm not going to describe all this. I'm only going to be working on AIMOS specific stuff. So my rear edge press, that's this one, this switches to slot 1. Now, all of my slot jumping macros are going to have a little bit more going on, and I'll cover that. It's not much. It's really just one thing. So here you see we are turning relative positioning mode on in steps 1 through 3. F10 is relative, F9 is absolute. And then here we turn on sync again. Okay. Now, I know this is a direct to slot macro. Why would I want to turn on sync? Well, in this case, I have combined my EMA team focus keybind, which basically is a keybind that you set. Mine is clearly F1 here. When you press that on all of the characters at once, they will set their focus to whichever team member is assigned to that spot. So I have F1 bound to my EMA focus 1. And so when everybody presses this, my main PC becomes the focus. If I were to hit F2, PC2 becomes the focus. Maybe you can see where this is going. So this is the only command being sent to the game. None of this other stuff here or here goes into WoW. So, you know, looking at this, you may think, oh my God, look how much stuff is being pressed. None of this goes to the game client. This is the only one. And so after sync is on, everybody's now set their focus to be PC1 in this case. Then I issue the direct to slot 1 command, which is numstar, num1, let go of numstar. And so you can see here I have a few other ones, and 4 to be precise. Left trigger push, pushing down on this one activates slot 2, including the set EMA focus for slot 2. If I pull it back, does slot 3. And I may change this around. I literally just changed these the other day. I may change them one more time. I think one of the things I realize is, you know, I've got a HDMI multi-viewer, which you can't see, of course, because I'm not including that in this video. But right now I've got it so that pushing this is PC2, pulling it is PC3. But in the multi-viewer, PC2 is top left, and this may be reversed for you, but in PC3 is top right. And I realized it would kind of be nice if I set this up so that when I push on the left or pull on the left, it's only working with PCs that are on the left side of the multi-viewer, and then right would be on the right side, right? So in that way, you know, this is not technically AIMOS stuff, kind of is. Like this would be slot 2 like it is. This would be slot 4 instead of slot 3. And I might even, depending on how my brain ends up working, if I make that change, I'm not sure if pulling, I think, would be slot 4 because that's the one that's closer to me, and then pushing would be slot 2 because that's the one that's at the top. My monitor is in a vertical orientation, which is why I keep pointing up there. But really, it doesn't matter where my monitor is. Multi-viewer on the side, it's still, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully you can see all of that, right? So these are all the same. And it's really just, you know, push, pull, picks a different, you know, computer, activates it while also making sure relative positioning is on. Sync turns on really quick. They hit the keybind for EMA Team Focus and then switch to the slot. And you can sort of see here, these happen out of sequence. Like I have sync going on first for some, and then relative positioning getting turned on. I haven't really found, like, I don't think it really matters. They're different just because you know, when you go record these, it's on a separate screen. So I didn't like see the other ones there to remind me. And I was just sort of recording them. But yeah, like this is basically 5 PC direct to port setup here where, you know, truthfully, the only part of this that is jumping directly to PC5 is these last 3 here. But these other ones just combine things that you are going to want to do anyway, because I keep talking about relative positioning. Part of the way that I can get around having 2 mice is by using relative positioning. You know, if you're in a shoe 1 for your mouse, where relative positioning is a little iffy, chances are you're going to have 2 mice. Otherwise, there's just, you know, too much other stuff to worry about in terms of, you know, like if you try to macro that and, you know, you're locked into the y-axis and you got to hold on this key, maybe it'll work to like put a press tilde and hold until you turn off relative sync, but not every mouse, for instance, is going to have that. So again, pretty much every single one of these cases where I've got a set of commands that involve altering mouse positioning, those would not go on a keyboard macro. Because again, it's keyboard, not a mouse. So macros for your keyboard shouldn't probably mess with mouse positioning. I personally will run with keyboard sync on pretty much all the time, unless like I'm replying to a message or you know, I'm splitting off one character or one gets lost or whatever. Like, you know, even then you can accomplish a lot of what you need to do other than typing a message with the mouse. So this is just really convenient because it takes care of, you know, really 2 things on the AIMOS, and then with turning sync on briefly and pressing this button here, takes care of something important a while, because if you're switching to a PC, while you may not always want to direct combat from that PC, chances are like you probably, you know, want to do it, and this lets me do that without thinking. I don't have to worry about anything. I hit the button or pull the trigger or whatever for the PC I want to control, and then now whatever I do, combat or whatever, everybody, because of the way the macro set up, where, you know, if it's GSE, there's an assist focus in the key down or key press section, or if it's a, you know, while macro, there'll be, you know, / assist focus, same thing. And then make sure that, like, you know, I can swap to any PC and everybody else is just going to follow that person. And, you know, if you wanted to, you could, of course, change it. And not everybody uses focus-based combat like I do. You know, click EMA Assist Master still works. Only downside there is that should something go wrong, you cannot change the master in combat, which means that, in the case of if you're running a dungeon and your tank goes down and you still got stuff you need to kill, you're going to have to, kind of stay on the tank to pick new targets. You can try not to. You can maybe just tab target and hope everybody picks up the same target, but you could get yourself in a situation where some of the followers decide to pick up a different target depending on what way they're facing. So, I like only playing with one mouse. I play with two mice in the beginning, and it works. And I think it's kind of your own choice with the shoe one, but it was didn't feel natural to me, and so having the ability to sort of drive from any character by this mechanism of using focus, and even you can do it with click to master, or follow master, assist master. Just you can't change your targets in combat from any of the other characters if whoever you were controlling when combat started dies. Okay, so like I said, there are 5 of these in total. These, I'm pretty sure, is all I need to show you. Like that is really the core of using an AIMOS with a mouse or keyboard hardware macro setup. And like I said, there's more to it. To the AIMOS, it does serial mouse switching. There is, of course, hotkeys for other functions. But the thing is, I don't have macros for those. Those are more like edge cases. I don't need to, because of how I have this set up, I don't need to worry about using barrier or synergy or something like that to sort of help me move my windows around. I'm doing it strictly with this. And, of course, there's nothing wrong with doing it those ways. It works for a lot of people, and especially if you have a shoe one, you probably really want to have something like that going on. But we're not talking about shoe one. Again, for those who maybe haven't seen some of my other stuff or whatever, I do have 2 cam syncs. They're both AIMOS A ports. I have a keyboard, a full-size keyboard, and a keypad plugged into one. And like I said, I think before, I'm almost always running that with sync on in terms of combat and questing. And then on the mouse, sync is normally off. And that is in its own AIMOS. And so I basically can, keep my sync between input device types separate at all times. And until I got this mouse, I was mostly always having mouse sync off in combat. Although this device, I found ways to really do a lot from the mouse, and it's a pretty unique thing. And maybe you're kind of seeing some of that here, but I'm not going to go into that. That's the long and short of it. Sync on, and if you feel ambitious, turn on absolute mouse positioning with one macro, and then you're going to need at least one macro and button for every slot you want to switch to. And I mean, if you really wanted to and your device could support it, you could maybe do like a one button back and forth, next slot over. That isn't how my brain works. While I'm, dodging movement mechanics and hitting interrupts and stuff, I like to have one button or trigger get me to the exact PC I need to be in. And so that's pretty much it. I mean, if you were to break them up, you would need one button for sync, another button for relative mode, another button for absolute mode, and then one for each PC. So that's 8 buttons. But I think in most cases, you're going to be pressing a lot of the same buttons over and over again. So that is why I would really recommend kind of combining your slot switching macros with handling the correct mouse positioning mode, and then maybe even sending a command to the game so that everybody starts like following that character, focusing that character, whatever. And I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but there's a lot of stuff in these, and the only line in this whole macro and any of these slot switching macros that makes it into the game is this one. And if you don't use focused based combat like I do, you wouldn't even need to do this. And so, like in that case, if you were just doing this in a keypad and you only relied on EMA Assist Master, you could get away with not doing this. Now, I would say that you shouldn't leave out the set current character to master, right? On my previous mouse, and I do not have this set up on my keypad or whatever, my keyboard either. The mouse I was using when I was on EMA Assist click macros, I would always send the keybind for clicking that. So if you go into the key bindings for EMA, you have an option set current character to master. That would still be in all of my slot switching macros, even when I had them separated from the mouse positioning command here, right? So like if you switch to a slot and you're using either type of combat method, like chances are if you're going to start like grabbing mobs or whatever or targeting and attacking, like you should try to use that character as the master. That really will only work though if you're out of combat. That switching the master is not something that is allowed to run in combat. So keep that in mind. Because of that, I switched to focus-based combat. And thankfully, Ebony's great. She a while ago, like month and a half, maybe more, added the EMA team focus thing, and I imagine it was for this very reason. Anyway, so that's my rundown. I hope this was helpful. And like I said, I'm gonna do another post on the dual boxing forums going through the AIMOS in depth, like I did with the shoe one. Peace. This is the part where I end the video, right? Yeah, it is.